Mistfall Hunter is a brand new PvPvE extraction game that just released their third beta today. There is a lot of new content that's been added over the past 4 months, including a new camp system where you can interact with other merchants, a weapon crafting system to create gear from materials you find while playing, a new hard mode game difficulty where more experienced and geared players will be able to venture for better loot, and a huge amount of balance changes, including a change to how the stamina dodge system works, alongside a number of specific class changes as well. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Firebox, and I have roughly 5,000 hours in extraction games like this that are focused on melee combat. The reason I enjoy Mistfall Hunter in particular is because it reminds me a lot of a Dark Souls game. Even though the combat is not quite necessarily the same, the aesthetic of the game definitely has that Souls vibe, and to me personally, I really enjoy it. The gameplay I have to share with you is from my first 30 minutes playing, including the tutorial, the new camp, and the main area where you're going to spend most of your time fighting off other players and monsters for loot. I will have the timestamps down below if you want to skip to any of these sections. If you do want beta access, you're going to have to request it on Steam. However, I will warn you the developers have decided to make the test more limited this time around. So if you were not part of the last test, you might need to wait for access unless you signed up early enough. Some of you from last test might recall that the number of playable servers were also quite limited. Luckily, they have started to expand the server options, including Japan, US East, China, and Germany. So hopefully players will have better performance. Now, I do want to take a little bit of time here to discuss the comparisons of Mistfall Hunter to some of the other games in the genre. Those of you that follow the extraction genre very closely will probably know that there's not a lot of competition out there right now. There's virtually no games that exist in this specific niche. The big games, the ones like Escape from Tarkov, for example, or Arc Raiders that's coming out, those are more focused on, being a first-person or third-person shooter. The melee combat extraction, there's not a lot of options right now for something like this. So as a result, most of you probably know that I focus on Dark and Darker for my channel. At least I have quite a lot in the past, and there really hasn't been any real competition for Dark and Darker over the past year or two. We did have some games here or there that tried to compete. The most notable one that most of you probably know, because I played it almost a year ago, is Dungeonborn, which had like 40,000, 45,000 players on launch and fizzled out in a matter of, I think it was 2 months, 3 months, and it was pretty much dead from there due to just bad development decisions. And we haven't really seen a company release a game like this that I've seen have good, competent updates. And I'm very happy from the progress that they've made from beta 2 to beta 3. I mean, you can see in the background, having a full fleshed out tutorial in a beta setting is something that's just completely unheard of in, if you're comparing it to something like Dark and Darker, which is currently the only other extraction game that you can play that isn't gun focused. It almost sounds silly even saying it right now, because you kind of think it's obvious, like, of course, if you're going to have a game, you're going to want some kind of tutorial system for your players, and it's just not really the case. So I'm really glad that they're focusing so much on the new player experience with things such as a tutorial, because this genre desperately needs some kind of competition that is allowing people to get into the genre that would not normally get into it, because these are very hardcore in nature. Keep in mind that games like this, when you go into the dungeons, any loot that you have and you die, you lose all of that gear. And it creates this very toxic gameplay environment where the new players are trying to get into the game, the veteran players know what they're doing, and they're basically farming the new players for free because the veteran players have better gear and they also have more experience, so they're generally winning most fights against these players. And for a game like this to survive, you always need a constant stream of new players joining, or you end up with Dungeonborn or something like Dungeon Stalkers that released about a month or two ago and died in, I don't even know, it died in like 4 days or 5 days. It was super quick. And I'm really looking forward to some of the different games that are releasing. Not just Mistfall Hunter, Midnight Walkers, which is the zombie extraction game. and Hunger, which even though I believe it's supposed to have guns, it's going to be similar to, I think, Hunt Showdown. I've seen that there is going to be some semblance of melee combat, which does interest me, and I really like the aesthetic that I've seen from Hunger. So really, really excited to see what this genre is going to look like in, say, 6 months to a year from now, once hopefully these games release, get fleshed out, and pray that they don't just lose all their players after the first couple weeks or couple months, like a lot of the other games have. And with Dark and Darker having their looming lawsuit right now, I believe there's supposed to be a decision made in about 6 weeks from what I've heard regarding whether Dark and Darker is allowed to stay up or not, because Nexon is pursuing them to try to get the game shut down. I have no ill will towards Dark and Darker, even though I don't really play the game anymore. And, with that in mind, it's looking really grim for this genre if these kind of games don't excel. Because if all of them fail and none of them do well, companies might just stop making games for this genre in general and just stick with, what already works, which is the first person or third person shooter games. I know I kind of rambled a little bit there, but I really do care about this genre a lot, and I just wanted to put my thoughts out there. Now, I do want to talk about the new camp system that just got added to Mistfall Hunter for this beta. You're going to be able to talk with different merchants to buy, sell your storage to store the stuff that you get while playing. This is going to be weapons, armor, consumables, crafting materials, all that fun stuff. You're going to have a weapon repair and weapon crafting system, which I believe is completely new since last test. I don't think anything like that existed before. And I don't know exactly what else is new or not from last test because I didn't quite get super far into the beta yet. But from what I can tell, I'm really liking the immersion the camp is giving me. It reminds me a little bit of Digger. If anybody it remembers that game from years ago, I don't think it's been popular for a long time now. It kind of died off too. But it was the third person extraction game that was primarily on console. It did try to release on Steam, but it just quite honestly didn't do well. It's from Bohemia, same company from DayZ. And they also had a shelter system where as you would level up your shelter, stuff would get improved so you could physically see stuff changing around you as you upgraded your area. And I'm hoping that the same system is in Mistfall Hunter. I haven't got far enough to see if anything like that is here, but if it's not in beta, I really hope that's there in the future. Another thing I wanted to talk about is the new inventory system. I really like what they've done to it. So they've separated the inventory into 4 different sections: the tactical item inventory, your main inventory, a keychain, and your pouch. From what I can tell, the tactical area is for things such as medical supplies, throwables. Your inventory is going to just be your bulk for storing most of your stuff. The keychain is for the new stuff that's been added to the game, the keys that open up different treasure rooms, things like that. And then I think the pouch is supposed to be your safe pouch, if I can remember correctly. I think it was a safe area. And if you were here for last playtest, you might remember your inventory was really small, and that ended up just being completely filled with healing. It was kind of silly. You basically didn't get to loot any bodies, and you ended up just kind of playing the game with half an inventory of meds. And I'm really glad that they're changing that, because it will hopefully allow you to stay and loot in the game longer without feeling like you have to just leave constantly to try to leave with, you know, your very small inventory that's already full. I know it was in the last playtest, but I really do enjoy the skills and talent tree that this game has to offer for every class. Something that really has bothered me for a while, really the last couple of years, is that Dark and Darker was supposed to release a, you know, character talent tree, and they just never did it. They tried to do that whole multi-classing thing a long time ago, where every class could just use every perk and skill, and there was really no class identity anymore. Then when I found Mistfall Hunter and saw, like, oh, this is what a talent tree is supposed to look like, where you go through the tree and you actually put skills in different areas that significantly change your character and what your weapons do, or just I don't know. It's really nice that this stuff is in the game, and I hope that they continue to improve it and add more trees, and that the balance ends up being in a relatively good spot,
What a
so you don't have
pain
people
of a
just always
task,
running like the same
but
exact
he
trees.
never lets me
Obviously, a
sit
meta
where
is
he
going to
reads.
form, but I am really happy with
You
the current
actually
state
bring
of
back
the
something
trees that the game
solid
does
this
have to
time.
offer right now.
But
I also
before
really
we
like
leave
this new
here,
dock system they have
the
attached to
secret
your camp.
chamber
I
is
know it's
basically
a
a
really a small
playground for the
thing because
corroded
you could always
now.
just go to the menu
Those
and just
monsters
search
are
up the
crawling
game
all
anyway.
over the
So
place,
fundamentally,
so
it
you
doesn't
better
do
watch
anything
yourself.
different.
If
However,
you
I think there's a
die
level of
in there,
immersion here
all the junk you're
of actually
carrying,
going here and
yes.
hopping on the boat and then heading
Anyway, I'll
to the
clear the
dungeon.
way and
It just
get you
feels kind
safely to
of
the
nice to me
fortress.
personally. And here I want to talk a little bit about the new system that they've added, where they have a normal mode and a hard mode. And this is going to sound really funny, but this system is actually really similar to what Dungeonborns was. So if you see here, you're going to see normal mode and chaos mode. And the modes have rarity restrictions, minimums, and maximums. This is almost to a T what Dungeonborn looked like. I can't help but wonder if they got this general idea from that game. Uh, it's possible they did it, but I'm telling you, it looks really similar, and I hope it works out for them. One of the big issues that we've had in this genre in particular is that if you don't have enough players in game and then you start adding different queues with different game modes and more maps, eventually you get to the point where you have too many places that you're splitting up your player base, and most lobbies just end up being completely empty. And when you're making a game like this, where it's based on PvPvE, so the PvP is just as important as the PvE, you really need to have a good balance where you're able to fill lobbies in a reasonable amount of time or, at all in some cases. Because sometimes if the player base falls too low, like some of these games have where they've kind of died off, you just end up playing in a multiplayer game that's PvP, but it's completely solo, and that's no fun, obviously. They've also added a bunch of POIs on the map, which are really, really nice to see. It's one of the things that I've been waiting for in one of these extraction games for a long time, where you go to a certain area and maybe there's a chest that's being guarded or different objectives that are going to give you high risk, high reward. High risk being, well, there might be hard mobs there, or it's a high traffic area for other players that come fight you, but there's also high reward in that the chests or whatever else you're looting there is going to be high value. So you're really incentivized to actually go out and seek those different areas. They've also added new ways to extract, which I believe will help new players specifically, because the new players aren't going to just be funneled into being forced to PvP quite like they were before. So they'll be able to go to these temporary extractions and kind of just leave at their own leisure. Now, there is a Battle Royale circle in this game, which I think it's kind of a hot topic for extraction games like this. Some people see them as lazy. Some people see them as kind of just a necessary thing to get people to come together. I personally am kind of on the fence. I really don't like the circle in Dark and Darker anymore. I don't think it really belongs in the game. Uh, Mistfall Hunter, I think there's pros and cons. I almost wish there was another way that you could kind of close the map up without relying on like the PUBG circle, but I don't really know what the answer is. However, I just wanted to put it out there like, yeah, if you don't like the Battle Royale circle, then that might not be something you enjoy. The one thing that I do like is that I believe, unless they've changed it since last beta, when you're bossing, the circle should not affect the boss room while you're fighting it. And when it dies, they give you a portal to teleport into the zone. So the zone shouldn't screw you as far as that's concerned, but it will funnel you for PvP outside of those new static exits. So good and bad here. You'll just have to kind of make that decision for yourself. As far as the PvE is concerned, there are certain mobs that I find to be particularly easy, then some mobs that are going to be like more on the challenging side. For example, I will tell you, I bossed last playtest. I've heard that they've added some new stuff this time around, but yeah, if you try to fight the bosses, at least for melee combat, I know there was some easy range cheese. You can just like shoot it with a bow and it's free. But if you're trying to melee fight it with a character like the one you see here in front of you, you're going to have more of a difficult time, and it's going to feel more like a Dark Souls boss fight, As far as the smaller enemies go, the really small guys have a stagger, so every time you attack them, they'll kind of just get hit and they won't be able to react at all because they'll just keep getting stun locked. So they're really, really easy to fight. The medium-sized guys, they don't stagger, but they do have a pretty predictable pattern, so they're not too difficult. And there are larger elites. I don't know if they've added new ones from last playtest or if they've updated anything. I also have not played the hard mode map, but at least as far as what I've seen on the easy mode map, the small guys and like the small medium elites don't seem to be too particularly hard. So I think new players will be able to get into it pretty easily. But the harder elites and the main boss should be a challenge, especially going into the chaos or the hard mode map, where I'm assuming the veteran players and the people that play a lot over time will end up going. They added a new identifying mechanic as well, where if you find a high rarity item or craftable, you have to sit there and figure out what it is. This is very, very similar to a mechanic like Escape from Tarkov has, where you have to search items. Now, it's not exactly the same because you don't have to search every single item. It seems to only be higher rarity items that have the affixes or the crafting materials that are higher rarity. I'm kind of on the fence in terms of this change. It will slow players down from looting too fast because it's going to force them when they're finding good stuff to sit there and wait a few seconds. But on the other side, is it just unnecessary downtime just for the sake of downtime? That's kind of how I feel about Tarkov personally, but that might just be up to personal preference. I think that's going to be everything that I wanted to talk about. I ended up rambling a little bit longer than I was expecting to, but hopefully you didn't mind listening to me too much. I'm going to go ahead and let the rest of the gameplay run in the background. If you do want to see some live gameplay from me to see what the beta looks like in person, I will have a link to my Twitch in the description down below because I do plan on streaming the game during the beta, both there and here on my YouTube channel. So you're welcome to watch me wherever you think is better for you. And if you do enjoy this video, be sure to like the video. Helps out the channel a lot, so thank you in advance, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Hey, over here! Take a look. I've definitely got something that'll catch your eye. Divine weapons? Magic keys? Ho ho ho! Pip's got it all!
You're back, Guild Hunter. I can no longer sense the echo of that prayer. Tell me, what happened inside the sacred chamber? I see. The last follower was a blacksmith. His end should have been one surrounded in iron and fire, just as he had been in life. But the corroded robbed him of the right to that final rest. If Kiernos were still here, he too would mourn this poor soul. I will do my best to carry on the echo of this bell. Perhaps the praying soul can hear it, and find guidance in fate once more. Thank you for your efforts, Guild Hunter. Once you have gained more experience in combat, come find me again.